Welcome to Mondays with Vish. You know what time it is and what day it is. I'm Grant. That's Vish. We only have 55 minutes today. We're short on time, so let's get right into it. No introduction, Vish. Let's talk about this loss, the most recent one. What's the first thing that stands out to you about it? Because I have strong opinions, unlike
Yeah, first, as a fan, it was rough to watch. Losing to Dallas, I wasn't there for or alive for the Dallas rivalry, but I have Cowboy hate ingrained in my blood. So losing to Dallas is like losing to Seattle. I wouldn't mind, like, this season's been rough. I understand what's happened. I understand what the coaches and players have had to go through with the injuries and with the relocation and all of that. But man, it would have been nice to beat Dallas, like, as a fan. That would have really helped. My thoughts on the game was it's been the same kind of game we've seen. The Niners have had a solid game plan. They've been able to execute at times. They haven't been able to execute at times. And that's what happens when you're playing 16 backup players. That's just what happens. Well, yeah, but that's just what happens when you're playing backup players. I've seen a lot of special team scrutiny on the timeline, on Twitter, and all of that. And I do want to say something about the special teams, just a food for thought. So the Niners special teamers, their main special teamers, the Tarvarius Moores, those kinds of guys are now playing defense, which means they're not playing special teams. And that's why the Niners special teams has been tending to struggle, because all the guys they sign, they basically just throw on special teams. And people act like special teams is simple, but there's a reason the New England Patriots have invested in Matthew Slater for years. There was a reason Brad Seeley, when he was here, had Bubba Ventrone to run down the field and Blake Costanzo, and they invested in those guys because special teams takes coaching, it takes synchronization, it takes work, and the Niners special teams doesn't have that practice. So I did want to mention that. But overall, it was just kind of a rough game. Nick Mullins kind of did. Go ahead.
Okay, no, keep going. You can keep going. I'm just saying that's like the nicest thing you could say about that game. Rough.
Yeah, we talked about
embarrassing, Vish. Don't you think?
Right.
I mean, look, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just taking it a step farther because you're a nice guy and I'm a jerk.
Sure.
So what I'm saying is, yeah, man, it stinks to lose to Dallas, but they beat themselves. They didn't lose to Dallas. They fumbled the first punt. They fumbled the second, third down. Like, just go home, man. Just go home.
Yeah, it's tough. And, this is why I was a little reluctant to really credit Nick Mullins after the Rams game, because he has a tendency and a propensity to turn the ball over. And where I question him long-term as a starter is when the games are tight and the game situation needs Nick Mullins to make a play, he often makes a mistake. And that's why when they're in these close games, they're losing with Nick Mullins.
Because he's a backup. Right.
Yeah. And he's ultimately a backup player. We could sit here and nitpick every single thing with him, but to me, he's kind of a footnote, just like he's a footnote when they win with him, because he's a $750K backup that shouldn't be playing 7 games. So I wouldn't really be crediting him when they win. And when they lose, it's like, what do you expect from him? You got to start picking at, well, what were the other guys doing? Because those are the guys that are going to be the long-term future of the 49ers. Nick Mullins isn't. So that's where I stand with that. Okay. Ultimately, I did like, CJ, we know what CJ is, but he did have the one sweet throw to Jet against the blitz. I like that, the little sidearm flick. That was a little swaggy, and I didn't know he could throw that far. He launched that.
He can throw far.
He launched it. So that was
he's like an outfielder in baseball. He doesn't necessarily throw like 90 miles an hour, but he throws a lot of long tasks. He can throw long. Yep.
Right. So, yeah, and I think the number one thing that we're learning is, obviously, we're going to talk about the quarterbacks. The Niners' entire offseason is going to be focused around the quarterbacks because nobody knows, right? Kyle Shanahan's this enigma with what he wants in a quarterback, because we've never actually seen him get the opportunity to pick multiple different guys, and we can then kind of pencil in Kyle Shanahan looks for these things with his quarterbacks because we haven't seen it. And so that's going to be the conversation. The one thing we did learn is that I don't think there is a possibility of where you can say, hey, draft a guy and Nick Mullins.
Hold on. Let's not go to the quarterback discussion yet. Let me say one thing about this loss before we move on.
Sure.
Let me say something about this loss. You're very measured and even-handed, but what I got to say about this loss is it's embarrassing because they beat themselves. It's one thing if you go to Dallas and you lose because the other team is just outplays you. But for like a bunch of weeks in a row, that the Niners haven't even gotten to that level. They beat themselves. And it's not just Nick Mullins turned the ball over. It's
Right.
Richie James
fumbling
Jr.
the punt.
It's Mike McGlinchey getting beat by DeMarcus Lawrence. It's everyone. And it's like, it's okay that you lose games, and it's okay that you have a ton of excuses. 28 players on IR, that's fine. But to beat yourselves every week and to have it be a group effort is a bad sign. And I always come back to the coach with that. But we're going to talk about Kyle and what we feel about him later. But that's what I'm saying is this is, again, below the standard, even with injuries. You can't beat yourself every week.
Sure. The two things for me, I would say with that is what I was trying to say with Mullins. It's the situation where I don't think there's a possibility where I think after the Giants game, we would have said, well, if they're going to move off of Jimmy, right? Jimmy's hurt, then maybe Nick can start 3 games and they can draft a guy and do it that way. I don't think that's a possibility now. You can't start Nick Mullins. It's getting to the point where you're coaching up these games and you're making mistakes as a team around him, which you can't do. And he's making mistakes, which he's going to do. So it's just not going to work that way. And the other thing I will say is that, and I think this is kind of the biggest point I took away from the game, is there's a guy who doesn't get a lot of credit when he does play well. And there's a guy who takes a lot of slander when he plays well. And he got hurt yesterday, and I thought his impact was felt with the defense. And that's Jimmy Ward. And Jimmy Ward is a Pro Bowl level safety. I want to just keep reiterating it because I feel like he's the kind of guy that not many fans, when he plays well, it's not like people are going crazy. He's not marketable. He's just quiet, unassuming, does his job. They really missed him yesterday. He covers a lot of weaknesses on this defense.
And he sells out. He threw his body around in a game that ultimately didn't matter and got knocked out. Richard Sherman was getting out of the way of tackles. Ultimate respect for Jimmy Ward.
Right. And the thing is, we've talked about, right, ad nauseum, well, can they play man coverage? Can they play zone coverage? Jimmy Ward is kind of what allows them to be multiple in coverage because they can put Jimmy Ward on a bunch of different players in a bunch of different spots and say, just guard that guy in man and we'll play zone, or we'll play man now and we'll play 2-man and stuff like that. And they can do those things because he's that versatile. If you saw Saleh blitz the first couple times they had Moore and Harris, and I think he blitzed because he can no longer be multiple by rushing 4. He's got to play cover 3 or cover 4 with those 2 guys at safety. So he tried to cover that by blitzing.
Yeah. Also, the thing with Jimmy, I feel like this is the double-edged sword with Jimmy. Like, to me, he's at his best at strong safety around the action, around tight ends and stuff. But he still is built like a corner, and he broke. Now, I'm not saying that I just felt like it was inevitable. You play him 16 games at strong safety, something bad's going to happen because he plays like a linebacker and is built like a corner, and that just means bad things are going to happen. So I feel like the Niners have been like trying to protect him from himself his whole career. And this second half of the season, they're like, all right, man, we need you, dude. Go play strong safety. We need you. And he gave him everything. So I actually, Jimmy Ward, salute.
I actually disagree with that real quick. I do think they've put him in the box a lot more, but I think the thing they've been able to get away with is that both him and Tart can rotate and play both free safety and both strong safety proficiently. Right. With Moore, they're scared to have him at the box, especially when you're playing offenses that have window dressing because he's not the best with his eyes and just executing, hey, what's my job on this play? Can I do this job? He's young. He's inexperienced. He had a couple nice plays yesterday, so that's nice. But, yeah, I think – I just wanted to point that out because not many people, I feel like, give Jimmy Ward the credit where credit is due, and I just wanted
He went out on his sword this season, unlike 25, 69. Hey, salute Jimmy Ward, no question. And also, Tavarius Moore made a nice play in the fourth quarter. He did not quit. Kendrick Bourne, beautiful catch with the Hail Mary. A lot of Niners are still fighting, and that's my last thought. When Kendrick Bourne caught that Hail Mary when the game was over, I was like, okay, I will respect you for the rest of your career. You did that. You could have been like, the game's over, man.
Right.
Salute Kendrick Bourne. Let's move on. We're running out of time. This is the main topic. This is what you want to talk about.
Yeah.
Kyle Shanahan, what he looks for in quarterbacks. We're all talking about who's he going to get? What's he want? Well, what does he look for? Vish, what do you think?
This is going to be the thing we're going to talk about for the next 6 months, right? The Niners are not making the playoffs. We can't even go and think, well, if these 2 teams lose and the Niners win these games, they can do it. It's over. And it's going to be about where they draft and who the quarterback is going to be. I think most people think that they're going to move off of Jimmy Garoppolo. I guess maybe there's a situation that they keep Jimmy Garoppolo. Who knows? But there's going to be a lot of speculation because this is something that's a total enigma. Here's what we know about Kyle Shanahan. Here's the facts. Whatever quarterback he gets, he maximizes it, right? Here's what we don't know. We haven't seen Kyle Shanahan go through the process of, hey, I'm the offensive coordinator here. This is the guy I like. Let's draft him and let me spend time developing him. And this is the
Sure. Like
quarterback
if you
I
give
like,
him
right?
Matt Ryan at 32 years old and he's been to a couple Pro Bowls and maybe had a little dip in his career, like bring in Kyle Shanahan in that zone and that outside stretch zone and the play action. He'll get the most out of it.
We've seen it. We've seen it, right?
Yeah.
We've seen it. Like Jimmy Garoppolo, right? We're talking about a quarterback with an average arm, limited field vision, and he put up top 5 numbers and went to the Super Bowl with Kyle Shanahan. Nick Mullins, a guy, if we're ranking all the quarterbacks who started yesterday, he's dead last in terms of physical ability. And he, with Kyle Shanahan, is putting up numbers in terms of passing yards comparable to Andrew Luck and Patrick Mahomes.
4,400 yards in his first career 16 games. It's amazing what that little guy does.
So it just tells you how special he is at maximizing those guys. Sure. But he hasn't had the opportunity, right, to go through the process of what Andy Reid just did with Mahomes, you know, that process. And he did it with Donovan McNabb. That process hasn't been there for Kyle Shanahan yet. And everybody has an opinion on it, right? But the reality is drafting quarterbacks is hard. Kyle Shanahan has 2 that we can really attach to him in Kirk Cousins, CJ Beathard. I guess he's 1 for 2, but Kirk Cousins, I feel like he wasn't there for a bulk of his development. That kind of happened when McVay was the OC. So that's there. So he's 1 for 2.
You can definitely see that Shanahan has a type, though.
Right,
I mean, he was like, okay, I can do it again with CJ Beathard. And Beathard isn't Cousins, but you can see that Shanahan saw shades of Cousins there.
Right. And you can see what he likes even in Beathard, right? You can see the traits on why he drafted him. He just didn't work out. It's what it is. And so when you look at, so you can tell those things, right? And so everybody wants to say, well, he liked this guy before this draft. I don't like getting into that because I think that people often attach their names to other players once they turn out to be successful. I feel like 2 years, 3 years from now, we're going to hear about the more and more people that liked Mahomes before the draft and somebody said no to them. When in reality, of the famous guys, I remember Sean Payton loved Mahomes. Andy Reid evidently loved Mahomes. They took Mahomes. And I remember Bruce Arians before that draft was obsessed with Patrick Mahomes. So those are the 3, but I'm sure we're going to hear about a million more people over the next 15 years as Patrick Mahomes has his Hall of Fame career and people say, I liked Mahomes. And some scout on the Niners is going to say, I liked Mahomes, but they said no to me. So I don't like getting into that. We don't know. And drafting quarterbacks is obviously such an imperfect science. It's the hardest thing to do in sports. There's a reason why the Patriots do it every single year. It's simple statistics. If you keep drafting a quarterback, you're more likely to get it right. Like if the hit rate of a quarterback is 30%, right? Then if you take that 30% chance every single year, you're increasing your probability of getting a guy. And even then, they've only hit on 2. Can you say 2? Brady and Garoppolo as hits. Yeah. So it's a real imperfect science and everybody's going to get into it. So the things, let's talk about what we know with Kyle Shanahan and his quarterbacks, right? So let's start with his words. So he did interview was him, Matt LaFleur, and Sean McVay after Matt LaFleur got hired. And one of the questions in the interview is, what do you look for in a quarterback? So this is a year ago. So his opinion might have evolved from there, but let's just go through what he says that he looks for in a quarterback. Let me get this, my bad. I lost my flow. Okay. So there's a lot in here. So, okay. So what's your deal breaker? What's the trait you can't tolerate? So this is basically when he talks about what he looks for in a quarterback by saying what he doesn't look for. He says, if a guy's scared to take a hit, he has no chance of playing this league. You have to use your brain, and there's so much going on in the heat of battle. Your mind has to be clear when the ball is snapped to understand coverages and throw the ball into tight windows to get the ball to the right spots. So what I take from that, reading that, right, is 2 things stand out to me. He's obsessed with toughness. We know this. That means he wants his quarterback to not be thinking about the next hit he's taking. He wants him to be solely focused on what the defense is doing with the coverages. The number 2 thing is he wants them to go to what he deems is the right spot based on the play he calls and based on the coverage the defense gives, right? Mm-hmm. So those are the 2 things I gathered from that.
Basically, what he wants is a guy who follows his directions, throws the ball where he wants it to be thrown on time, and takes the hit. No excuses. Follow my design. No excuses. Make the throw.
So who's that guy in the NFL right now? It's Kirk Cousins, right? That makes sense. It
was Ben Roethlisberger too. The dude was huge.
Right. So why you like Kirk Cousins, that makes sense to me. So now we get into this year, right? People are speculating. They ask him the question, Kyle, who do you believe? What would you look for in your quarterback? And his answer was, I look for a guy who has the opportunity to be one of the top guys. So I hear that and I say, okay, I see why you like Kirk Cousins. Maybe he could be a top guy in your offense, but in my opinion, there's a physical ceiling to Kirk Cousins that there isn't a ceiling to the other top guys.
But you can see why he likes Nick Mullins too, and you saw it and you heard it in the press conference last night. Remember?
Right. So we're getting to that, right?
Yeah.
So now the thing that stuck out to me yesterday in his press conference was when the reporters were basically asking about Nick Mullins' first pick. He said, "Well, it's okay to me because he went to the right spot with the ball." So it didn't strike him as egregious. Where I kind of sirens alarm the bells is, well, he couldn't make the throw, right? And part of playing quarterback, I feel like, is making the throw. And now look, Nick Mullins is a backup, right? He's not physically capable. I understand. But to me, going to the right spot, right, there's this context. Like if you take a guy like Kyler Murray, in terms of his field vision and everything, he's not Deshaun Watson. There's Deshaun Watson who comes into the NFL ready to go, pretty much always knows where to go with the ball, right spot. Joe Burrow's somewhat like that. And Patrick Mahomes, since he started, has been of that. But then you have Kyler Murray and Josh Allen, especially Kyler Murray, who right now, yeah, their offense is bad, but he doesn't always go to what the coverage dictates as the right spot with the ball. Kirk Cousins does, but Kyler Murray doesn't. Who do you think is the better quarterback, Kirk Cousins or Kyler Murray? It's Kyler Murray. He's way more physically gifted. So that's where this entire conversation.
So what you're saying is Shanahan would rather have a robot. He'd rather have a robot who does exactly what he says, reads the coverage exactly right, but can't improv, can't go off script. He basically wants someone to do what he said. He wants to be the quarterback, but he can't. So he wants a guy who goes where he wants him to go and throws when he wants him to throw. Basically, he wants to be the quarterback himself.
Right.
Deep down.
And so there's that level where that's where when we come to start evaluating and looking at who's going to be their next quarterback and all of that, this is something that I think that has to be taken into account. Because the other thing is, I just don't think there's a lot of college quarterbacks, especially in his offense, that'd be ready to go to the right spot every time straight out of college. I don't think there's many, in fact. Like Deshaun Watson is not in this draft.
I can think of two in this draft, maybe three.
Yeah, so Deshaun Watson is not in this draft where he's special in every which way, and Patrick Mahomes is not in this draft. So he's going to – I wonder where that adjustment's going to be. Kyle's opinion could have evolved, but this is going to be the conversation, right? Because there's another layer to this too. So I've put it kind of documented. I'm an avid fan of Chris Sims' podcast. And part of the reason I became a fan is because he talks positively about my favorite coach, Kyle Shanahan, because that's his best friend. And him and his dad had a recent conversation about Patrick Mahomes, and his dad asked him the question. He goes, who do you think would have allowed Patrick Mahomes to play the way Patrick Mahomes plays right now? This freeness to kind of be himself and play this exact way. And he said 3 coordinators, and they were not Kyle Shanahan. He said Sean Payton, he said Brian Daboll, they said Doug Peterson, and they debated on maybe Bruce Arians. Why is that interesting to me? It's because I think that there has to be a point where Kyle Shanahan, if he drafts a guy, everybody loves Zach Wilson. I think the way Zach Wilson plays, there is a point where Kyle Shanahan's going to have to be okay with Zach Wilson not going to the right spot, but also making plays, because that's what Kyler Murray does. He doesn't always go to the right spot. Sometimes his progression doesn't make sense, but he often makes plays, and they win games because he carries.
Kyle says a lot. He's like, a lot of these quarterbacks in college and high school, they run around a lot. That's what he says. They run around a lot, and they win Heismans that way. And they get to the NFL and realize you can't do that anymore. And the thing when I watch Zach Wilson in particular is he runs around a lot. Runs around a lot. And I'm not saying that's not good. I'm just saying when Kyle looks at that, he's going to be like, I don't know. Maybe he loves Zach Wilson, but I could also see him be like, well, a lot of his how many of his plays come off script?
You got to love the way he throws the ball, right? You got to love that. You got to take a chance on that. That's going to be the thing. Well, is Kyle going to be ready for that?
Anyway, I think it's time we're about 20 minutes deep. We got about half hour left, 35 minutes left. Let's start going through these prospects because that's the topic now. The season's over. It's quarterback time. The Niners are going to get a new one. Jimmy Garoppolo most likely is not coming back next year. And these guys all played this weekend. So we have more data. And Vish and I disagree about a lot of these guys. So we're going to have an academic, mature, respectful style debate, although sometimes I think we agree. So let's start with, we're not going to talk Trevor Lawrence.
Real quick. Someone did point out that they said, I think Kyle would be fine with a quarterback with mobility. Absolutely, he would be fine with a quarterback with mobility. That's not the question. I think he'd be totally okay with that. But what he wants is someone that's going to go to the right spot and be tough first. And the quarterback that he gets with the mobility might not be the guy who...
If the quarterback is constantly improving, then Kyle can't take credit for his system. It's what happened in Green Bay with McCarthy. Everything in Green Bay was improv, Aaron Rodgers, and it was because he had to, because Mike McCarthy stinks. But Kyle Shanahan wants that. He wants the scheme to be the star. He wants everyone to know that it works. And if his quarterback's bailing on the design of his plays, Kyle's going to be very, very upset about that, even if the quarterback is making it work on his own. I'm just telling you, he's going to look for guys who at least stick with the design of the play long enough. And that's toughness. That's the toughness he looks for. So let's move on. Trevor Lawrence is not a topic, but Justin Fields is, because he is the number 2 guy, and he just played a bad game by his standards. So what do you think of Justin Fields?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I have not watched a lot of Justin Fields this year. I'm trying to get into just watching full games of the college quarterbacks like now, and because I'm on winter break. But I've not watched a lot of Justin Fields this year. I will say this. When I watched Justin Fields last year, like, I knew the hype, right? Number 2 recruit out of high school. He's going to be the number 2 pick when he comes out of draft just because Trevor Lawrence exists. Otherwise, he's a number 1 level prospect. When I watched him last year, I watched him versus Michigan. I didn't think he was that good. I really didn't. Like, I see the physical ability everybody sees, but I don't know. There's just a lacking in feel. I don't think the physical ability is like a Justin Herbert or a Josh Allen. It's not a maximum. I think it's pretty good. He's got a really good arm. He can make all the throws. He's athletic. On theory, he checks every box, but nothing is elite.
Physically, yes.
Right, but nothing is elite. And I just didn't think he played with a natural. I feel like there's a feel and accuracy and a touch to playing quarterback. I don't know how to describe it, but I think this is why people loved Joe Burrow in spite of him having not a very strong arm. And that's because he had a touch on how to throw every single football. The guy's running a crosser, how to kind of lay it on him. You know, Tom Brady's the best I've ever seen at this, where he just has a feel on how to throw every ball, how to take pace off the football, how to just fit it into spots. It's a very natural thing. And I just didn't see that with Justin Fields, you know, where it didn't feel like, well, my guy's running a crosser and I'm going to put it on him in a way that's comfortable for him to catch it. It just felt like he just kind of throws it and stuff. That's just my opinion.
Agreed.
I haven't done enough research to be definitive, but that was my takeaway from last year. And my big thing was, well, I've seen Kyler Murray and I've seen Joe Burrow. If those guys are number 1 picks, then how is this guy a number 1 pick?
Yeah, to me, he should not be a top 10 pick. When I look at him, I think about Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts is doing well right now. So maybe Justin Fields can do well, and I'm being too hard on him. That the way that the NFL is evolving, that there's a place for a guy like Justin Fields. But I think he's got to be if he's a first-round pick, he has to play right away. And if he's going to not bust and have success, he needs to be playing in an offense like Jalen Hurts is playing in right now, where he's in the shotgun, he's running the zone read, running about 10 to 15 times a game and running for, like, ideally 100 yards. Is that the offense Kyle Shanahan wants to run?
No.
If he had his choice, no. He's not. I mean, if Jed York said you have to draft Justin Fields, the way Dan Snyder said you have to draft Robert Griffin, he'll be like, all right, I'll do what I got to do if he's a 29-year-old offensive coordinator, but now he's a 42-year-old head coach. I don't think if he had his choice, I think he would pass on Justin Fields. Even though he went to the quarterback collective and tried to study with the Niners guys.
Did he go there?
He did, yeah. He did.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm not like, I don't
He could be good.
Right. He could be good, but I'm not the biggest fan of Justin Fields currently. Maybe he's gotten a lot better this year. I know I was reading on Twitter. I didn't wake up early enough to watch the game, but I was reading that he was having a pretty rough game against Northwestern. I mean, it's tough to say. He didn't have to
throw. He would look at his hand. He completed 4 of his last 17, and then he'd miss and be like, "Oh man."
I mean, everybody who's been an athlete has either done that or knows the person who does that. I'm not saying he wasn't hurt, but the person who, I just got beat. My hamstring hurts.
All right, let's keep it pushing. Zach Wilson. This is another guy that may or may not be available for the 49ers. I think he's having such a good year, and I think he plays. Did he play this week? Did he play tonight? He plays this week. Anyway, he's having such a good year that the Niners would probably have to trade up to get him. Do you like him? Is he can't miss? And would you trade up for him if it were 5 spots?
Yeah, so I would.
Okay.
I really like him. My
Okay.
thing is I'm very it's when I look at quarterbacks and stuff, just because it's so hard to do and stuff, I just like guys who can throw. And
Yeah.
he can throw. He can throw off any platform. He's got all the arm angles. He's got a skill set where you look at if a coach can really sit with him and get his fundamentals and get his decision-making process and all those things like Kyle Shanahan would be able to do, then you can have a superstar because he's got he's got everything that everybody looks for, right? There's a reason people have stuck by Sam Darnold all these years. It's because he's got the ability to make funny body throws. That's what Zach Wilson can do. Everybody's obsessed with the off-platform, different arm angles, guy around me, throw those kinds, flick it off my wrist, 25 yards on an out, far hash throws. He's got it all. He in a sense, he kind of reminds me of a lesser Deshaun Watson.
Agreed.
So Deshaun Watson, he's got the same throwing ability to me.
Like that.
Deshaun Watson,
he's got wheels like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think he's a little less. He has a little less feel in the pocket as a scrambler, and I don't know if he's as smart as Deshaun Watson because Deshaun Watson is brilliant. I don't know if he's that smart, but I do see a little bit.
But he had a lot of reps in college. He played a lot of football in college. Yep.
Right. And Deshaun Watson, the one thing that was translatable with Deshaun Watson is that he never lost his poise. That's the one thing. His poise is unreal.
Played in huge games, the biggest game possibly played.
Right. And he never lost his poise. The moment was never too big with him. With Zach Wilson, being a BYU guy, smaller school guy and stuff, like Josh Allen was able to come up and the lights never got too bright for him. The lights have seemingly not gotten too bright for him, but Carson Wentz, I'd argue part of it was the pressure in Philly and the lights and everything. It started becoming too much with Nick Foles winning a Super Bowl. Who knows if Zach Wilson would be that would be a question I would have. Well, does he have that ultimate self-belief to be successful if things go bad initially or if he has a couple of rough games?
And what I like to do with quarterbacks is like try to ask like what is the projection here? Best case, who is this guy? Or realistically, who is this guy going to be? And to me, like what I've heard is Deshaun Watson and Aaron Rodgers, some serious comparisons.
Right.
And that's fair physically. I see it. But it's not just a physical position. It's a lot about your experience and your reps and your team and your competition and all that stuff. And all I know is Deshaun Watson played against the best competition in college. Aaron Rodgers, I was there for that. I'll never forget how well he played against SC twice. He might have beat him once. And the second time. So, he was proven against NFL defensive players. And he was throwing to dudes. Like, I remember his top wide receiver at Cal was Burl Toller, who went to my high school and is now the wide receiver coach at Cal. Like, he wasn't throwing to NFL wide receivers, but he was dicing up the Pac-12, which had USC, which was a national powerhouse at that time. I wish I could see Zach Wilson do something like that. I wish I could. I'm not saying he can't. I just wish I could see it.
For me, Aaron Rodgers is just it's that comparison needs to be thrown out. The Aaron Rodgers is one of one for me, and the way he doesn't have the arm Aaron Rodgers has. He has a great arm, but nobody spins the ball that tight, throws that hard with that level of control and accuracy. He's Aaron Rodgers for a reason.
No one does it. No, and I think what the before we move off, the defining characteristic for Wilson is his wheels. He's super quick, and then all the off-platform throws he can make off of that are nice too. But when you compare him, it's like I look at his wheels first, and that's why I think Watson is a good comp.
Yeah,
he is the small school version of Watson. And finally, the only question I have is if you're trading up for Wilson because you trust his traits, can he start right away, or is the speed of the game going to be a little bit of a shock to him? It seems like he could start right away, but is he ready to win right away? Maybe not.
Yeah, and the other thing for me is he's got a lot of moxie and confidence now, right? And we love that, right? We love just the confidence he has. And it just comes back to, well, the NFL is very unforgiving, and a lot of guys lose their confidence. And I'd argue that a lot of guys who have the talent, the reason they don't make it all the way is because they don't have that unnerving self-belief that other guys have. So, well, he's not been faced that he hasn't faced national spotlight adversity yet. And how will he respond to that is a question that you and I can't answer, certainly. And you would have to talk to him and meet him and know what kind of person he is to actually know that.
Now, it's interesting, like, I keep wanting to move off of him, but with Derek Carr, He had a great career at Fresno State, similar competition, and then had the one bowl game against USC, which was an unfair competition. I mean, he's going up against a team that's way better than his team. Didn't play well, fell to the second round. And I think people in retrospect weighted that one game too much. So maybe with Zach Wilson, you just got to trust the traits and then get to know him. You know, get to know, is he smart? What kind of character does he have? Because he's not Josh Allen in terms physically, but his resume isn't much different. I mean,
it's funny. It's funny. You bring up Derek Carr. That's the comp, not Deshaun Watson. Derek Carr is the comp.
I think he's better than Derek Carr, too. I think he's more aggressive. I think he's faster.
Yeah, but with Derek Carr, I don't think people realize how gifted he is.
No, he's very
Derek Carr really has everything you would look for to be a superstar quarterback.
And final point is, I don't think the Niners are going to get Zach Wilson. I think he's going to go.
Yeah, me too. I think he's going to go too early.
So Jermaine Pickett says, Merry Christmas, Grant and Vish. This draft or trading of Jimmy will define 2021 and beyond, no doubt. Great job this season. Agree. You think we can get Trey Lance? Hey, good question. Why don't we talk about Trey Lance? Appreciate you asking the question. This is where we want to focus our debate. Trey Lance and Kyle Trask. We got about 20 minutes left, so let's get through it briskly. But what do you think of Trey Lance? You've been watching him.
Yeah, he's the guy I've been watching a lot. And for me, the number one thing with Trey Lance is, first, I actually really like him. I didn't expect to like him this much, but I really like him. And it's, forget the throwing for me, it's the running that really impresses me. Like, for some reason, I think we've gotten into this bad habit as a society talking about football where we just completely disregard what a quarterback does with his legs as part of what they do. Like, Josh Allen was bad his first 2 years, according to some, but people were totally disregarding the 500 yards and 8 touchdowns he would get you running. And that's my thing with Trey Lance. Like, the running is special. Like, I imagine this run game. You got Trey Lance in the shotgun. You have Raheem Mostert next to him. You have a read option type look. So now you got to account for Trey Lance running. You got Deebo Samuel coming in motion and George Kittle lead blocking, with maybe even sprinkling some Jalen Hurd. This run game would be unreal. Imagine having Ayuk, Hurd, Kittle, Deebo, and Mostert as your 5 eligibles with Trey Lance. That's 5 different ball carriers with Kyle Shanahan, the best or second best run game coordinator in the NFL. To me, that's where I look at him and say, people have questions whether you could start day one. I agree with those questions. You know, they do run some Kyle Shanahan concepts, and there is a little pro style to him. He's been under center and stuff like that. But I don't think he's ready from a control of the ball standpoint and reps throwing the ball standpoint to just say he can come in and throw 40 times a game the way Burrow and Herbert have been. But if you can build the run game with him, like, oh my God, and maybe he develops as a passer, maybe he never develops. If he develops to even what Lamar Jackson is, because Lamar Jackson is pretty darn good, it would be amazing. But Lamar Jackson had so many reps in a pro-style offense. But I feel like if he could be half of Lamar Jackson / Josh Allen in his development, where he can make a few big-time throws because his arm is that big, and you can run the football with him, Deebo, Ayuk, Hurd, Kittle, like, this offense would be a menace to stop because they just out-physical people.
Yeah, no, you made a great case for Trey Lance. I'm trying to think if there's any other reasons to. I mean, so are you saying that if the Niners drafted him, they would have to take him with their first round pick? He's not gonna. Yeah. He's probably not going to be there in the second round. So if they take him at 9 or 10, are you saying start him right away with the rookie? You know, throw him in the fire, live with the knocks, and then just use him as a runner and build him up.
Training wheels on him.
Yeah, the training wheels on him. Did with Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just let him play. Let him run. He trucks people. He's a runner. He's the best runner in this class.
And he's a good fit for a run-first offense. He's played under center, all of that. Hey, you make a great case, and I'm glad that you did. And let me try my best to rebut. So I'm going to start this way. Like I said earlier, who was the comparison for Trey Lance? Now, I like his tools. I love his tools. You laid it out. I mean, he's got it all. He's big, he's tough, he's strong, he's fast, he's competitive. He's also very inexperienced. Like shockingly. No junior college, 1 year of starting experience in 1AA, 318 pass attempts, 1 game this year. I think he completed 50% of his throws. So again, definitely a high upside prospect. But what's the comp here?
Yeah, the comp, I mean, you got to look at like true dual threat quarterbacks. I mean, I think the maximum people like to say is Josh Allen, but Josh Allen is 1 of 1 physically. I've never seen anything like Josh Allen physically in my life.
Allen had more experience at Wyoming.
Right.
Yep.
Right, and in a pro-style offense as well. So I would say the comp is I see a little bit of Colin Kaepernick, but he's not Colin Kaepernick to me. I don't know. Maybe he's Jalen Hurts as a runner with Jordan Love type throwing potential. Is that
I see that. I see that. But again, every time you try to get a comp, it's a guy who played more than him. I mean, even Kaepernick was, I think, a 3-year starter at Reno, which is, more than a 1-year starter at
only quarterback in college football history to have 10,000 yards passing, 4,000 yards rushing when he left Reno? Yeah.
So I love Trey Lance for a lot of reasons. But the thing I'm saying is his resume is not befitting of a top 15 pick. It's not. His skill set maybe, but quarterback is not just an athlete position. It's also
right.
So if I'd feel much better with him taking him with the 30th pick than the 15th.
I understand that.
Like if you take him where Green Bay took Jordan Love, you don't have to play him right away. And he could be a 2-year project, the way Jordan Love's a 2-year project. And then when he gets on the field, he could be fantastic. He could be a super Taysom Hill. But if you take him with the 9th pick, you really got to play him right away. He may not be that good. I mean, he could, to me, he's a boomer bust prospect, and he could be put in a bust situation that's not necessarily his fault.
Yeah, there is validity to that. I definitely see that. I just think that if he can be utilized as a runner first, you can get away with him playing early. Because the running is so – I was just turning on these full games, expecting to see just another big guy he's different as a runner. Like, to me, there's difference between being Kyle Shanahan always talks about it, right? When he talks about Lamar Jackson, there's a difference between being able to run and running like a running back. He runs like a running back. He can really run the football.
I'm just saying, you don't live out here, but Niner fans are not patient and they are not kind. And in this offense, all the quarterbacks the past 4 years have been throwing picks like they can't get enough of all of them. And if Trey Lance comes in here and throws 20 picks as a rookie, Niner fans are going to hate him and they are going to run him out of town, and it won't be his fault. So I'm just saying, Trey, I hope you get to go to a place where you get to sit at least 1 year. Because if you got to play as a rookie, your fans might hate you. Because I think you might have a rough rookie year, and why would we expect anything else? You haven't played that much.
So I know you got to go, so we got to push through. But I got one last point. Imagine this, okay? Imagine this. You throw him 20 times a game, okay? 5 throws.
Like the Russell Wilson treatment from his rookie year, yes. 5
throws are the push pass, okay?
Yes.
5 throws are roll him out. Guy comes out in the flat off the run action fake. That's 5 throws. So now you got 10 throws, and if you believe in him as a passer, then he should be able to complete all 10 of those. So that's 10 throws you complete.
All I'm saying, and we got to move on, is you're going to get the third down eventually. You're going to get the third down eventually, and you got to be able to drop back and hit them things, which brings us to the polar opposite of Trey Lance. The polar opposite of Trey Lance is Kyle Trask. And I think this is an important discussion as well, because the two quarterbacks I think the Niners are going to have the best chance to get are Lance and Trask. They're going to have to choose between these two guys. I don't think Fields and Wilson will be there. These two will be. Lance will probably they can take him with the 9th pick only, or the first round pick only. Trask, you might be able to get him in round 2. Trask has 2 years of starting experience in the SEC. His numbers are impeccable, and he is slow. He is not the prototypical quarterback in 2020. In 2005, absolutely. In 2005, with this resume, he would have been the number 2 pick in the draft after Lawrence. In 2020, people are like, dude, you are slow. So what do you think, man? What are your thoughts on Kyle Trask? Are you saying dude is slow?
Yeah, I'm saying dude is slow. I liked Kyle Trask. I like his size. I like his poise. I like his movement. For all the things you want to get into about his arm, which it is, he throws only one type of ball, and that's a floater. And you do want to, right? He has been accurate when he has to go, and he's been a good decision maker. He's been a very good college quarterback. I think to rip on him, too many people are going a little crazy with the criticism and going a little overblown. He's a good player. He is really a good player. I think the comp, I've seen it. My comp was Mason Rudolph. I've seen Ryan Finley. I liked Ryan Finley coming out of college, so I think that's fair. But I think he's better than both. But at the end of the day, my thing with Kyle Trask is it comes back to here's where I'll say it comes back to Shanahan's comment. He wants a guy who he could say who has the opportunity to be a top flight guy and be one of the best guys. And for me, from a physical standpoint, Trask just doesn't have that ability. I know you're high on Trask, and Trask might have the highest floor of all these guys just because he's had the most reps. Dan Mullen, the concepts kind of simulate a pro style offense. He's had to throw a lot. He's had a lot of reps reading SEC defenses and stuff that way. But I just think that he might already be at his maximum capacity. Who knows? I actually kind of like Mac Jones a little bit more just because I think he has a better arm. But I'm not sure I just sit here and say I love Mac Jones, because here's where I'll lay it out, and I think most 49ers fans will agree with me. You can't, because you're not a fan, so you won't really understand this. But the Niners have to deal with Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson in their division for at least the next 8 years. Those two guys are top 10 quarterbacks. I think Murray has the ability to be a top 5 quarterback. Russell Wilson already is a top 5 quarterback. Goff, for all his faults, I think he's like the 21st best quarterback or 22nd best quarterback in the NFL. Has started 16 games for four years in a row now, and he's got good numbers. So what I don't want is a guy with the maximum. What I don't want in the next quarterback from a fan's perspective is a guy whose maximum ability is to just be the 3rd best quarterback in this division. Because I just think that over time, that's going to you're not going to have the winning success that you deserve when you have this level of coaching staff and a George Kittle and a Fred Warner and a Nick Bosa. So that's where I push back on both Trask and Jones. I watched the game, Florida versus Alabama, and I said I wouldn't want either of these guys.
Okay, well, let me make the case for Trask in that sense. To me, it's like the NFL scouting is flipped. 15 years ago, everyone was like, well, you got to be a pocket passer. You got to be a pro-style passer. So these dual threat guys would just go down to the 2nd and 3rd round, and they should have been picked higher because the teams weren't looking for the best quarterback. They were looking for a type of quarterback.
Right.
And so they would swing and miss on guys who fit the profile and whiff on guys who didn't fit the profile but played this position a different way. Now it's flipped. Now you got to be dual threat. You got to be a dual threat. And so that to me means that there are going to be a couple of guys, Justin Fields, maybe Trey Lance, who fit the profile but are basically fool's gold. And then you got a guy who doesn't fit the profile but has the resume and is just a objectively good quarterback in his style, but is pushed down because he's no longer what teams are looking for. When I see Trask, I see a combination of Peyton Manning and Ben Roethlisberger. Now, maybe he's not going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback, but I think, and maybe if Peyton Manning were coming out in 2020 and Ben Roethlisberger were coming out in 2020, they wouldn't have the same success they had 20 years ago because the game has changed, and they really are statues. But from what he's done, he has no running game. He led them in rushing attempts against Alabama. He drops back and throws without any real offensive line or misdirection or anything to help him, and he dices up the SEC. I think he's an example of people having their biases. He doesn't play quarterback the way people want him to play anymore, so he's a 2nd-round pick. And that's a guy that's interesting to me because he has the resume. He's got the accuracy. He's got the vision. He's got the poise and the pocket movement to be at least very good in the NFL. He's not going to be Mahomes. He will not be Josh Allen. He's not going to be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. But, hey, it doesn't mean Trey Lance is going to be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL either. I feel like this guy can't miss. Freaking can't miss. And if it were 15 years ago, he'd be a top 5 pick.
I mean, that's a lot to digest.
So I tried my best, Vish. How did I do?
I mean, I think you went a little far when you threw out Peyton Manning and Ben Roethlisberger. I see where you're coming from if I just completely forget that you said Peyton Manning and Ben Roethlisberger.
I can't get that out of my head.
Yeah, I think that's what people are going to get stuck up on now. But
look, his resume is legit. You can't be like, well, his resume isn't there. I mean, you compare his numbers to Trevor Lawrence's numbers. They're just as good, if not better. He plays in a tougher conference. Everything that you have to say negatively about Trask is stylistic. It's like, it's not going to translate. He's not fast enough. Well, it worked in the most athletic conference in college football. And it didn't just work a little bit. It worked like a whole lot every single game, even against Alabama. So I just feel like that's a safe bet. I don't know. But maybe I'm wrong.
We'll see.
I have a terrible track record of drafting quarterbacks. Let's keep
Everybody
it pushing. Yeah. Hey, Speaking of which, let's say the Niners don't want Trask or Lance, which is their prerogative. Is there someone else that we haven't mentioned who would be available in round 2 or round 3 that the Niners could develop into a starter? I know you said Mac Jones. Is that the guy you like?
Yeah, but I think Mac Jones is going to be a first round pick. Like, I like Mac Jones to an extent, you know. I think he's the fit for the Kyle Shanahan offense. I think he has a better arm than people give him credit for. And, you know, I asked you this question like 3 weeks ago when we were just talking about quarterbacks on the phone. Like, and the Mac Jones is the one I get to see the most because Mac Jones plays for Alabama, which means he's on TV. From the physical standpoint, I actually don't know that there's much that differentiates him and Tua. Now, Tua had processing moments and stuff like that Jones isn't going to have. But I don't know physically how much better Tua is. I mean, Tua isn't as athletic as people thought he was. He wasn't Russell Wilson.
He's got quicker feet than Jones. I watched Jones.
Sure. He's got quicker feet. He's got quicker feet. I'm not saying that Jones is the more physically gifted player. I'm just saying it's not that far off. If
Tua had all the advantages that Mac Jones has,
right? If Tua's a B physically, Mac Jones is a C+ or a B-.
Yep, I'm with you. That's fair.
Yeah,
that is fair. I just have the same problem with Jones that I have with Fields in the sense that his job is easy. I watched him anytime you got Najee Harris in the backfield, like defenses are more worried about him than you.
Right.
They have to tackle that guy, and it's hard. And then everything works off of that. So I just feel like if you put Trask on Alabama, he'd have 60 touchdowns, 2 picks. They'd be 11-0 or whatever. Have they lost this year with Mac Jones? No. So yeah, whatever. 6-1 half dozen. Okay. Is there anyone else besides Mac Jones that you kind of like or is intriguing to you on day 2?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't really watched this guy. I just see him on Twitter, people talking about him and see some highlights, and he looks like he's got some real physical ability, kind of Jordan Love kind of physical ability, and that's Desmond Ridder.
Yup.
He seems to have a lot of ability. Yeah.
Undefeated this year, right?
I think so.
Dual threat.
Yeah, he's got ability. Like, he's the kind of guy, like, I get the NFL's kind of traditional and old obsession with having the backup that's like a coach, the extension of the coach.
But that's changing.
Right. In my opinion, you want a backup like Desmond Ridder where, yeah, he's not ready to go. He has a lot of things that super raw in his game. But maybe you sit him for 3 years and all of a sudden he just keeps improving and getting better. And all of a sudden you have something special because he's got ability.
Also, the idea is instead of bringing in a mediocre passer off the bench, why don't you bring in a mediocre passer who also can run?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Yeah, you're not going to be that good of a passer. You're a backup, but you have this other element of your game. And it's different from our starter, but it helps you compete. So, I mean, it works for Jalen Hurts. Look, I got a name for you. Tell me what you think of this guy. This guy's also an SEC quarterback. He has started more than 40 games, and he's won a lot of them. Kellen Mond from A&M. Now, he's not the most accurate dude, but he's got a lot of experience in the SEC. I think he's like 8-1 this year. He's thrown 1,300 passes in college. He's a dual threat. I don't know if he'll be a starter in the NFL.
He's really gifted, isn't he?
What?
He's really physically gifted, isn't he?
Yes. Kellen Mond, A&M. I like him. I'm not only going to be a starter, but he's the kind of backup we're talking about.
I think I think I've seen him once or twice. He's got a pretty strong arm and he can run. It's like two things that I guess you can look at. And
he's experienced.
Right.
Maybe in a good conference. Yeah.
Right. Maybe you can pick up something with him.
I don't know. That's one guy I'd be interested in. Kellen Mond. He's been at Texas A&M like for 4 years. He's never completed more than 63% of his passes.
Right.
He's not going to be that kind of a passer, but
why not?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. It's a round pick.
All right. Okay, one more. Derek Carr ? I didn't prep you for this one, but it seems, look, I'm guessing that Derek Carr is going to be available this offseason. I think John Gruden loves Mariota. He signed through next year. I think Mariota's going to take that job, and you disagree?
I don't think Mariota will ever throw the ball in his life the way he threw that ball in that Thursday night game. I had to keep rubbing my eyes, and is that Marcus Mariota?
Fair enough.
He can't throw like that ever
again. It's a
again.
prediction. I'm not saying it's going to be the right call. I prefer Derek Carr, but I'm predicting that John Gruden is going to find a way to stick with Mariota next year. And then I think Carr will be available. He'll be more expensive. And the cap at best is not going to go up. If he's available and John Gruden makes this decision that you think would be crazy and goes with Mariota instead, do you think the Niners should be interested in Derek Carr?
Yeah, I mean he's no, actually no. I'm gonna say no, and here's why with Derek Carr. So I'm actually a believer in Derek Carr's talent. I think he has everything you need to be a good quarterback. I think he's not that bad from a processing standpoint, and he's shown that he's been a good player even with John Gruden. I think that people are constantly looking for him to reclaim his MVP candidacy and be that kind of player again, and he just hasn't been that kind of player. But he has the ability to be a top 10 quarterback, and he's played like an almost top 10 quarterback this year. He's been excellent. Here's where I don't think Derek Carr would be the fit. Derek Carr has shown throughout his career that he gets rattled when he gets hit. He's not a guy that likes taking hits.
No,
there's been bad moments where people have said, is he crying on the field? He's shown that he's not a guy that wants to get hit. And to play quarterback with Kyle Shanahan and, as bad as and as much as we can debate the offensive line and all of that, some people don't think it's a problem. It is something that has to be upgraded because quarterbacks get hit frequently, no matter who's back there. And so Derek Carr maybe moves better than Mullins, moves better than Jimmy, and he's maybe better in the pocket, but he's still going to take more hits than he does with Trent Brown, Colton Miller, and the best center in the NFL, Rodney Hudson. Right.
One more point real quick with Derek Carr. That's a great point. The lack of toughness or not the lack of toughness, but what you're saying. Also, with Derek Carr, he's not exactly Alex Smith in his conservativeness, but he's not exactly Brett Favre either. Throws a great ball, but a little hesitant on the deep stuff sometimes, what I've seen. And I think what Kyle wants, even though he's adapted his offense to Jimmy and Nick Mullins, Jimmy more so, I think he wants a guy who can throw downfield. I think he wants a guy who can throw downfield like Matt Ryan. And I think this guy is going to be a guy like that, not like Carr.
So the thing with Carr, right, is that when he came in the NFL, he was cutting it loose. He was ready to go. I feel like the hits, the breaking of his leg and all of that, it's kind of gotten to him where it feels like Derek Carr sees it. He knows what's going, but he's not always 100% in just letting it go and cut loose. Even this year when he's been throwing the deep ball great, he shows all the ability in the world. When you watch him, like, just watch him on TV. Like, forget all the nuance. He just doesn't feel like a guy who's 100% confident, 100% in control, just ready to, if he sees it, let it rip. If it's a 20-yard in cut, I'm just going to blast it.
That's what I'm saying.
He's got the arm to do that.
To me, Kyle Trask, who doesn't have the arm of Derek Carr at all, has no hesitancy in his game and is a willing deep thrower. And I think Kyle would be like, dude, let me just get that guy in the second round as opposed to this guy who's got trigger pulling issues. So let's finish it off because we got about 4 minutes.
To do a summation.
What's that?
To do a summation, though, we've talked about quarterbacks all show, and people in the comments, I'm starting to read it, and I'm with them. The summation, the kind of thing that I'm getting from this is that Matthew Stafford is the guy for the 49ers, and they need to go get Matthew Stafford, and we're all going to be super excited when Matthew Stafford is the starting quarterback in 2021.
Hold on. I don't want to do the Matthew Stafford discussion right now because I don't think it's going to happen. They're hiring a new coach. There's no way the new coach comes in and says, you know what? First thing we're going to do, get rid of Stafford. That's the move.
Don't say that to me, man.
I'm sorry. But Stafford is he's what entices a coach there. If Stafford isn't there, I don't see. Anyway, let's finish. Can we finish with Trubisky real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Because he's at least he's hot right now. He's had a good 3 weeks. I've been in his corner for like ever. I don't know why I stuck with him so hard. There's two guys I ride for, Nick Mullins and Mitchell Trubisky. And Trubisky right now, his stock is up. You live out there. My question is, one, do you think Chicago will even let him go at this point? And if they do, no.
Yeah, I don't know why, because they invested too high of a pick where if he shows any bit of something, they got to do it to themselves where they got to give him one more shot just because he's showing just a little bit. If he gets them to the playoffs, you got to do it all over again with him. Maybe you get rid of Nick Foles and you draft a guy in the second round and you have him compete with Trubisky, but they owe it to themselves. He's playing with the most confidence I've ever seen him play in his career. I hope he's got something just because from everything like on local news and everything that you hear about Mitchell Trubisky, it's like he's just one of the nicest guys And so I find it tough to hate on Mitchell Trubisky, though I've done a good job of it in social circles when my friends all talk about the Bears. Like I've been calling him the next. I was calling him the next Blake Bortles, all kinds of things. But I don't actually think that. Like when I actually
Shame on you.
Right. So I actually like him. He's a really nice guy, and I think the Bears owe it to themselves. Like it's a horrible decision if the first time he shows something that you might think is sustainable and he gets you to the playoffs, you just move off of him. You got it. Just because you took him with that third pick, he's got to be given that one more chance.
You know why he's gotten confidence all of a sudden? He watches the show. He watches the show. And he sees all the nice things that we say about him. Yeah, they run the ball. He's under center. He's out of the pocket. He's rolling out. I'm sorry.
RPO thing's been huge.
The RPO system fits certain quarterbacks. Great. It's great for Jalen Hurts. And it's great for Marcus Mariota, and it'll be terrific for Justin Fields. But for Trubisky, for Wentz, for Baker Mayfield, put him in a traditional offense. Let him drop back. Let him roll out, all that stuff. So I would just like to see Trubisky in a chance. I mean, we're seeing it now. I'd like to see Wentz get a chance. We're seeing Baker Mayfield in that offense. There's two different strands of offense in the NFL. There's the college-style RPO spread and the conventional pro style. And some quarterbacks are made for one and the other. And we're seeing what Trubisky can do and what he was, in my opinion, made for. So
yeah. I agree with that. I don't even think the RPO is a valid system. I just don't think you can build your offense around the RPO.
I think quarterback's running, that's a different story. You know what I mean? If you can you can't just have the conflicted defender and throw 7-yard passes all day. You got to have a run game too.
Right. I think every offense should have an RPO package and should be able to call RPOs like the Niners have it. The Chiefs call RPOs all the time, but they're creative and stuff. But their offense is not built around just running RPO every time, So I don't think that
you pass 60 times. Right. You got to run the ball.
Right.
You got to run the ball. And if you're in the shotgun, you got to run the ball with your quarterback. That's the thing. That's what it was in 2017. The RPO worked for Nick Foles. Because teams didn't know, no, you can't. If you're running RPO now, your quarterback has to be committed to run 14, 15 times a game. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. Like Trubisky, and he'll break if you. Anyway, I gotta go. It's been a great show. We tried
to just go. No questions.
Oh, I gotta go. I really gotta go. I'm sorry.
Okay, all right.
It's Christmas, and I gotta meet up with my wife in 20 minutes to do some stuff. So thank you so much, Vish. I appreciate you. We'll be back next time.